Nice of you to drop in.
Hello people, I'm the Comic Book Gamer. Today I'm going to be discussing why people don't like Superman. Well, why people hate Superman, because I'm fine with someone who doesn't care for the character of Superman. I'm the same way with like Thor. I don't hate Thor by any means, I just don't really care for him. He's alright, he's no one that I'm going to go out of my way to go and like buy a Thor book. I'm not. But I don't hate him, to where Superman has so many haters, like more than I would say any other superhero. There are so many people that just hate Superman and dedicate their like life to going around YouTube and commenting about how much they hate Superman. And it's just a little ridiculous, so I want to talk about maybe a few reasons why people absolutely hate him. Now, the bottom line for why people hate Superman is ignorance, because if you look at a big reason why people hate him, they think, hey, he's overpowered, how do you write a character that's so OP, how do you make him interesting, he's just stupid and overpowered, and you know everything's going to be fine in the end, it's just stupid. Now, this is coming mainly from people who have never read a Superman comic in their life, or have only read a couple. That's like if I were to only read Grant Morrison's Batman, and then go out and say, you know what, Batman's overpowered, because you've ever read Grant Morrison's Batman, that Batman is super overpowered. The stories are still interesting, but the character himself of Batman is overpowered. Like, he has a contingency plan for everything. This is the Batman that people are talking about when they're like, give him enough time and he'll take down Galactus. That's Grant Morrison's Batman. Like, he's insane. Just read Batman R.I.P. He had a contingency plan for like friggin' every single thing that happened in that. It was insane. But since I'm not an ignorant person, I know to read multiple writers and to read good storylines, because I just go and I Google like, hey, what's a good Batman storyline? And then I'm like, okay, I'll read that. I'm not an idiot. But you have people who read one storyline by a terrible writer and just like, well, you know what, Superman's overpowered and I hate him. And then you have the people who have just seen the Christopher Reeve Superman movies and are like, he's pulling a superpower out of his butt every 2 seconds. This guy's overpowered and stupid. That's not how Superman is. He was like that in the Silver Age, I'll give you that. He was. But that's not how Superman is now, or even when he originally started. That's not how he was, but he was at that, like, a time he was like that. But now, and when he originally started, he was not like that. Superman has some very interesting story arcs. One of my favorites, which is a big overarching story, is the New Krypton storyline, which I'll explain briefly. What happened was, New Krypton, which is the old shrunken city of Kandor, got unstrung. I don't know why I can't think. Enlarged. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word. It got enlarged to normal size, and so Superman put it on this planet that was like abandoned, or this like moon that was abandoned, and so they made a society. They became their own planet. They were called New Krypton. With that, Kara, aka Supergirl, her mother, became the leader of the planet. And so with that, she reinstated Zod's like, you know, I need someone I can trust. I'll choose a psychopath. She wasn't very smart. And so she chose Zod to be the leader. Well, not leader of the planet, but to be the military leader. Because in Krypton, there's like different factions. There's like different working classes. Sort of like how we have middle class and all that stuff. Except instead, each person can only do a specific thing. It's not really like free will. Sort of like Man of Steel expanded upon in that movie. That's how it was on New Krypton. So Superman was like, you know, I can't really stay on Earth and watch New Krypton, so New Krypton is a much bigger threat than anything that's on Earth, because it's like 100,000 of me. I need to go up there. So he went up there and he pretended to be like Zod's second in command. Well, not really second in command, but he was close to that. He went up there and was like, you know what, I'll work for you guys. I'll be in the military. And he trained people how to use their powers, since obviously he knows how to use them better than anyone else. And he infiltrated Zod's like military. It was really cool because every issue was like, is Superman going to be figured out this time? Are they going to know that Superman is not really, not really evil, not really working with them? This is intense. It really was. Another thing was, is Superman really turning to the dark side? We don't know. It was great. And one of my favorite parts of the whole storyline was where Zod is at this open gathering and he gets assassinated. And Superman is sent to find the person who assassinated him. And it's really interesting seeing Superman having to hunt down this person and see why they did it. Because there are people that really do not like Zod. And it was really cool to see because Superman had to work with and for Zod. He had to be for Zod. And again, it was just a really cool aspect of the book. And it ended with War of the Superman, which was just Superman versus like all these different Kryptonians with a bunch of other people on his side. Like pretty much most of the DCU heroes versus a full planet of Kryptonians, and it was really cool. I just loved the storyline. It took place over a ton of graphic novels, starting with like Superman Brainiac and ending with a Superman, War of the Superman. It was a really cool storyline. And also at the beginning, it has one of my favorite moments ever in comic books. It's to where Superman was fighting Brainiac, and he gets New Krypton. New Krypton's going to be enlarged, so he takes New Krypton from Brainiac. He beats up Brainiac, then he goes all the way to like Antarctica and places down New Krypton. He's like all happy because he's gonna have Kryptonians back, more of his people. He's all happy, and then you see at the Kent farm that Brainiac had sent a drone to go and kill his parents. Well, the drone missed, but Jonathan Kent has a heart attack, and you see Martha Kent having Jonathan Kent in her arms, and she's yelling, "Clark! Clark!" And then she screams Jonathan's name. She goes, "Jonathan!" And then you see Superman, he hears it, and he just flies over there, and he's just so sad, and then it flips over to the funeral. The first 5 pages of the epilogue, that's all about the funeral and stuff, no words are spoken, none at all. And during the whole epilogue, Superman doesn't speak any words at all. We see after the funeral, Superman goes to the Kent farm. He goes into the barn and he gets some souvenirs, like some special things for him and his dad, like a horseshoe that he made for his dad, and some big things. And then he just looks down on the ground and he is crying. And this was something I could relate to, and it was amazing. It was such a human moment for Superman, which Superman surprisingly has a lot of that people don't get. It was such an amazing moment. I absolutely loved it. And that's the part of Superman that people just don't know. And personally, to me, Jeff Johns currently writes the best Superman. I haven't read his New 52 Superman, but pre-New 52 Superman, Jeff Johns was amazing on Superman. And my favorite ever Superman graphic novel was Superman Up, Up, and Away. So during this storyline, Superman has no powers, and he hasn't had any powers for the past year. And the reason for that being was Infinite Crisis. And for those of you who don't know, at the end of Infinite Crisis, Superman and Earth 2 Superman fought Superboy Prime, and Superboy Prime is basically like the most powerful character in the DCU without going straight into entities. Like, he's insane. He can even compete with entities. And so Superboy Prime was fighting against Superman, Earth 2 Superman. They flew him through a kryptonite asteroid field onto a planet with a red sun, and Superman beat Superboy Prime with a bunch of kryptonite. Like, he physically picked up a rock of kryptonite and beat him over the head with it. And during that fight, I had also one of my favorite moments where Superman was like, the symbol you wear on your chest doesn't matter, it's what you do. And it was an awesome moment. But anyways, I'm here to talk about Superman Up, Up, and Away. And so, as a result of all that, Superman lost his powers for a year, and the storyline was so good because Lois Lane was a great part of the storyline, and she was so happy to have her husband back, because when Superman has his powers, she understands he's obligated to the world to go and protect it. It would be selfish if he had those powers and didn't try to help people, so she understands. But now that he doesn't have his powers, he can be her husband again. She has him, and she likes him like that. She's happy that he's Clark Kent. Not to say she didn't like him as Superman, but she likes him having her husband back and not having to share him with the world. And that was a really cool aspect. And Superman's liking being human again. Well, not again, but being human as well. And it's just a really cool aspect of the storyline. Through it, he even gets offered a Green Lantern ring, but he turns it down. And also, he has a system set up to where he uses a signal watch to call Supergirl whenever there's trouble, because just because Superman went away doesn't mean all crime did. And so during this storyline, like at the very end, Lex Luthor comes up with this big like Kryptonian ship mech type thing, and Superman fights him. And when Superman's about to fight him, because this thing's got kryptonite lasers and like it's made of kryptonite, Superman thinks in his head, if I fly through that, I might lose my powers again. And he's like, screw it, I don't care, I need to stop Luthor. Flies straight through that thing, because obviously during the storyline he does get his powers back, and he flies straight through it, takes Luthor down to this little island where neither of them have powers. They have this awesome boxing match. Some amazing lines are exchanged. I mean, just great. Superman breaks it down to where he's like, no matter if I have powers or not, I will always be there to stop people like you, Luthor, as long as there are people like you. Until there are no longer evil people on the planet, I will be here. And then just knocks Luthor out, and it was amazing. Neither of them had powers, and it was just an amazing fight team with great dialogue, and Jeff Johns just really understood the character of Superman, and that's what I recommend to people if someone asks me, like, what's a good Superman storyline to read? Superman Up and Away. Of course, you have to be a little bit diverse in the Superman culture a bit, but Jeff Johns really understands how Superman works, and he's just a great Superman writer. And at the end of the storyline, Superman creates the Fortress of Solitude in the Antarctica because he had one in the Amazon, and at the final panel is of him eating a pretzel, because that's one of the things he really came to enjoy, because before when he was Superman he would eat purely because he liked the taste, but now as a human he had to eat to survive, otherwise he'd die. And so he found stuff that he truly enjoyed, because it wasn't just like, okay, I want to eat something because I like to eat it, but now it's like, okay, where's the closest hot dog stand? I'm starving. And so through that he found good places to eat, and he found this really awesome pretzel stand that he loved, and it just shows how human of a character Superman is, eating this pretzel. And at the same time, one of my favorite aspects of the fact that Superman is a very human character, but he also is the bbest of us. He shows what we should all strive towards, and I love that. For some reason, a lot of people hate that. I don't know why. That's something I can't explain why people hate it. Like, it's weird. If you don't want to be amazing like Superman, I don't know what your problem is. Maybe you should go and just dress up like a bat and punch people in the face, and that'll solve your problems. Anyways, my last reason I think that people really hate Superman is his main villain, Lex Luthor. Because a lot of people, like my brother's one of these people, he can't grasp the fact of how Lex Luthor is a challenge for Superman. He's like, how's Lex Luthor a challenge for Superman when Superman could just speed blitz and murder him? First off, I always have to remind him, Superman doesn't do that. He kills people at the absolute last second he has to. If he can get away without killing someone, he will do it. But for instance, in Superman Doomsday, he couldn't do it. He had to kill Doomsday because Superman knew he was gonna die. So he's like, if I die and Doomsday keeps going, no one else on the planet can stop him. So I have to kill him right now. Instances like that. But Lex Luthor, he's not gonna kill Lex Luthor. There's no point in doing it. And also, Lex Luthor has political immunity. Diplomatic immunity. You can't touch him until he's in the act of doing something bad. Up until then, you can't. He's a really rich guy that's smart. He's the smartest guy in the DCU, which is really cool as well. And you can't touch him, which I just thought was such a cool dynamic to have, one of the most powerful superheroes in the DCU, have his villain be the smartest guy in the DCU, but not very powerful. Of course, he does have his war suit, which was, forged on Apocalypse, and that's really awesome as well. But we see without his war suit, he can do damage, just like how he got to the president's seat, working his way up there. He got to be president by manipulating people. Heck, he even got his billions by working his way there. It wasn't like, say, Bruce Wayne or Oliver Queen, where he was born into it. No, he had to work his way to being Lex Luthor, to being this billionaire guy. He started with practically nothing, and that is just another awesome aspect of Lex Luthor, which makes him an awesome villain. And one of my favorite parts of, panels that Lex Luthor was ever in was during Superman Last Son, to where Superman teams up with Lex Luthor to stop Zod, because Zod's a global threat and Superman can't stop him without him. So Zod has the Phantom Zone projector protected, and so that's the only way to really stop Zod. So Lex Luthor goes, infiltrates the fortress, and tries to get the Phantom Zone projector. Well, there's this Kryptonian there. Lex Luthor drops this kryptonite gas bomb, and then takes a red sun laser, hits him with it, and then takes a kryptonite laser and shoots him straight in the face with it. And during this whole time, he's giving this cool speech to where he's like, I am the greatest scientific mind on this planet, and I would be on yours too if it still existed. And during this whole time, he's like, I'm the great Lex Luthor, but I am merciful. And that's when he shoots him in the head. And then at the end, he's like, well, that's what it's like. That's what it feels like to kill a Kryptonian. It was just so cool. Lex Luthor is awesome, and he's a badass, and he's my favorite villain because, again, I don't consider Deathstroke a villain. He's an anti-hero, but Lex Luthor is my favorite villain, and he's amazing. And again, Superman's my favorite hero, and yeah, I just don't get all the hate for Superman. Again, bottom line is mainly ignorance. There are just so many ignorant people who just saw the old Superman movies and were like, well, he just reversed time, there's no way you can touch a character that powerful. But if you actually read good comics, you realize, oh, there are interesting Superman stories out there that are amazing. And also, who goes into every comic book thinking, you know what, I know my superhero is going to die, unless it's titled Death of? hardly ever does something happen to that character. There are very few instances where something actually huge happens to the character that does not involve death of in the title. So that's just what you gotta think of when you go into a Superman book. You gotta think of like it when you go into any other book. You know how you go into like reading Green Arrow and you're not like, I bet Green Arrow's gonna die or his hand's gonna get chopped off or Roy's gonna die. You don't think of that when you read a Green Arrow comic. You're just like, okay, I want to see a cool storyline. Same thing with Superman. That's just what you gotta think and you'll enjoy it. Just for some reason, people overthink Superman. They're like, well, you know, he's so overpowered, nothing will ever happen to him, ever. And I just don't get what their problem is with that. And yeah, those are my reasons I think people hate Superman. Again, this isn't going to change their minds at all if they absolutely hate Superman. If you don't like Superman, that's cool too. I'm fine with that. I just don't get why there's so much hate on the character. Not liking him and hating him are two totally different things. I just don't get why. But anyways, yeah, please let me know in the comments below, why do you guys love / hate Superman? And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like.